Hi, it's Dwyer of dwyercrime.blog. You know, it's 2024. The explosion of streaming media sites has given rise to binge watching, as well as adult themed mature content that we didn't have back in the over the air days, right? Back then, things were heavily censored. Now, artists and filmmakers have an opportunity to paint on a canvas that's nuanced and uncensored. So, in my opinion, the filmmaking has never been better. Now, I know this is weird, a true crime site where I am here just as a consumer, not as a paid spokesman, talking about a current bit of art. But it's worthy of it because I believe here the filmmakers have actually hit the holy grail. I'm a James Bond fan. To give you an idea on my taste, I consider the best Bond movie to be the one named after a villain, Goldfinger. I consider that to be the best Bond opening, right? The beginning of that movie. I would say there are three other movies in contention, right? The Spy Who Loved Me, the 77 film, James Bond skiing his way out of disaster, the Skyfall film, which I believe is from 2012, and in the running is 1999's The World Is Not Enough, right? Those are the James Bond movies I believe started the best, where you're watching the movie and you realize, wow, they've caught lightning in a bottle, right? By the time you get to Shirley Bassey singing Goldfinger, right? Think about it. The theme music's not about Bond. Again, it's about the villain. You realize that, wow, they caught lightning in a bottle. Goldfinger is the rare movie that actually continues to maintain the intensity of the opening, where you see Bond, he's in Miami, he encounters a woman, then of course she ends up dead and covered in gold. Well, let me just say, the next James Bond movie is gonna be lucky, and it's supposed to have a new James Bond character, right? It's gonna be lucky if it matches a series that is currently streaming on Peacock called The Jackal. Right, folks? Let me just say, this is on par with the very best of the James Bond series. It also augurs in a new era, because just like it took a while, you're watching Dr. No and you were supposed to buy Sean Connery as a spy, and it took a while for things to click. Here it takes a while for things to click, right? Where you accept the lead character who is magnificent. And the reason it takes a while is because the series opens on the villain. And let me just say, there are great villains out there. I think the guy who played Goldfinger is the high watermark in the James Bond series. Understand what it takes. You have to look at the villain and you have to realize that that villain has a certain lack of empathy. That the villain is actually a psychopath. The villain has to convince you that he's capable of pulling off the ridiculous things that they have him pulling off in these spy movies. Right? So the villain has to have a certain Tony Soprano type thing going on, where you can see him thinking. Whereas the villain is walking through a parking lot, you're walking through the parking lot with him, and you understand he has the IQ to be filtering in the facts around him with, of course, his ultimate plan in place. Eddie Redmayne, my goodness, folks, this is a 5-star performance. Right? He's the Jackal. Folks, I encourage you to watch the first 15 minutes of episode 1. I've only watched episode 1. I was mesmerized. Let me just go one step further, too. You know how you're watching a good Bond film, and the music's just right. The scoring, the film scoring is just right. Right? Bond moves by a wall, you hear, da-da. You know, Bond runs away from, some scene, you hear, da-da. Right, folks, here, I'm just telling you, everyone is on their game. It takes until half of the first episode for you to understand that you're watching really, prime James Bond level content. And understand, they have the whole cast here. In other words, it's not just a great villain and a great British operative. It's not just the two of them, but it's actually MI6, the portrayal here of British intelligence. They even have an M character who's interesting. Right? He's crusty, just like Judi Dench. You understand that he is very bright. That he cares deeply about England. Right? And I say this as an American. So, let's just say, it takes a lot to impress me. I normally don't come on here. In fact, I never come on here talking about James Bond films. Right? It takes a lot to impress me when I'm watching a depiction of crime and villains and cops going after villains, right? I'm not easily persuaded. This show gets my highest rating. I couldn't believe how good the music was. Now there are differences, right? Sean Connery's a loner. You understand, James Bond can't have a family. Right? Connery is bed hopping, and, you understand that the lifestyle isn't conducive to him being a parent. Here you have a lead female character. She's married. She has a daughter who wants more time with her. Right? It's a different focus. I think this is far more female friendly than the James Bond series. Let me also say, too, that it's interesting because the lead character here is a black woman. Right? When the crime happens, she is a bit passed over in terms of being considered to work on the case. Folks, it has a lot of pieces. They all fit together. Right? I'm looking forward to the next James Bond movie. If it's 70% of this, I'll be satisfied. That's how good this is. Right? Let me also say, too, Eddie Redmayne, my goodness. Right, folks, I'm hoping in this series he doesn't get killed because he's the villain you want to watch. I'm hoping they keep his character going. He is that good. In any event, I want people to give this a look. I made a video earlier today where I was talking about a real-life crime, the killing of United Healthcare CEO, and the suspect who has still not been identified, has still not been arrested. and I talked about the mistakes that suspect made. As I was watching this, right, that fact situation, because it's current, it's happening now, was in my mind, and I was just thinking, wow, if that suspect was Eddie Redmayne, this character he's playing, the cops wouldn't have anything on him. Those are my thoughts. Let me hear yours in the comment section of this video, particularly if you've watched the first episode of The Jackal. Folks, this is a triumph. Understand, cinema in movie theaters is going to be an endangered species because filmmakers now have longer than 2 hours to build a story. Right? So this Jackal piece, it's clear that the filmmaker was given a carte blanche, that the budget is big, right? Already in the first episode, it's moved from Germany to London to the countryside, and you understand the number of actors involved. Just the numbers show that it's big budget, right? They've undersold what could be a masterpiece, right? Episode 1 clearly is. If you ever thought to yourself, what would a female James Bond look like? This episode makes a bold offer to you. Those are my thoughts. I hope you leave yours in the comment section of this YouTube video. Thanks for stopping by.